I'll just press the gossip button 1 sec. Yeah, so as Natalie was saying, yeah, we do complement each other quite well on this course. Natalie likes to kind of frame herself as someone who has a lot of masculine energy. And I guess I'm maybe a little bit more feminine in my energy. So yeah, I'm a yoga teacher, and I also teach meditation, and yeah, I do a bit of wellness work on the side as well, and I'm training to be a coach too, so helping Natalie on this program. And yeah, I'm really excited to be working with you all yeah, the next 3 months essentially. So yeah, that's a very brief introduction of me, and yeah, just looking forward to this journey with you all.
Awesome, amazing. So what I'd love you guys to do, just to kick off, I'm going to give you a little bit of a frame of reference in terms of the words that I want you to use, because I know it can be a bit hard initially when you're like introducing yourself just to scratch. So obviously I am, so introduce yourself as you are. And then I want you to explain one thing you're currently feeling, and then one thing you'd like to feel by the end of the program. That's kind of almost just the introduction phrase or statement, because what this journey is about is from A to B. So it's about supporting who we're becoming. So yeah, if we can kind of capture that, I think it'll be just a nice, yeah, nice introduction for you guys, just to explain why you've come into this space. Lauren, you're at the front of or the top left. Do you mind going first for me? I thought that you thought I might pick on you.
I thought you might pick on me. That's fine. Yeah, so I'm Lauren. What was it? I feel.
Yeah.
I felt very drawn to Natalie's energy, and I have been feeling a little bit sort of stuck or blocked in my journey. I kind of know where I want to go, but there's something sort of stopping me from moving forward at the moment, and I'm not really sure what it is. And for whatever reason, Natalie's course popped up. We have a mutual friend who's a friend with Natalie, who's done this course before already. It just kind of, the synchronicities were crazy. It just like fitted in at the right time. And I'm feeling like this journey should help me unblock some of those stuckness, so I can move on to the path that I really should be on, but I'm stopping myself from being on, really. So yeah, that's the goal.
I love that. So is it about feeling, is the word stuck? Is it about feeling unstuck? Or is that a different word if you're kind of going to try and connect to the feeling of that?
I don't think the feeling will be unstuck. I think the feeling will be that I'm looking for is
we can come back to you. You don't have to put you on the spot right now.
It's not unstuck. I feel like fluid will be the right word. Like, okay. I'm feeling like there's a blockage. So okay. I'm wanting to feel more fluidity in my journey, and I feel like I keep coming up against these walls that I'm probably putting up myself. So yeah.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Sorry to press you. I just want to get really, really clear. Thank you. Sam, can you go next for me?
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Sam. At the moment, I would say I am feeling a bit in limbo in terms of, I feel like I'm very more in my feminine. We've had this conversation where I have an idea of what I want to do, but I need to be more, I feel I need more structure in place. So I feel I'm a bit in limbo because I'm a bit out of flow, and I want to feel more in flow and more in balance of what I want to do moving forward. So I feel being in limbo, for example, I was in Lisbon for a bit, now I'm back home and for family reasons, but I think this year I felt very like that. I've been kind of jumping all over the place and trying to find myself a little bit. And I've got loads of ideas and I kind of know what I want to do, but like you were saying as well, like just sometimes feeling a bit stuck or just getting in a bit in your own way. So I'm like, and I keep thinking what I want, but then it's like just actually starting to take action and coming into doing that and feeling more in flow and more in a balanced state of not just like my work, but my personal life and just that kind of overall approach. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Cool. Thank you so much. And we'll come on to the program goals in a bit as well, because I think that's what this is about. So I can almost get really clear about, or what does good look like? So whatever the date is in December, it might be the 15th, it might be the 22nd, depending on how quickly we move through the content. But what does good look like? You know, so I can hold you to account and get you there as well. And that's what I want to get really clear right now. And actually, it might change. So everyone on our last course, Lizzie, you'd agree, where they got to, where they wanted to get to was completely different to where they thought, and that's okay. But actually, it's just about honoring that and coming back to it and checking in as we go, because actually the intention is important. Awesome. Massimo or Max, what do you want us to call you? Max, Massimo?
I don't really mind. Some people call me Massimo, some people call me Max, whatever is easier for you. Cool. Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Massimo. And as you can gather, I'm originally from Italy. I've been living in the UK for 8 years now. I had the pleasure to work very briefly with Natalie, and it was a great session. It was just one session, but there was definitely some kind of shift, I would say, there. So how do I feel tonight? Well, I feel, it's very difficult for me to describe because these last 2 years have been quite intense. I've done so much work and there is so much work, to do. Yeah. And it's sort of, I tend to use the word transformation, which has started with my career, but really it's affecting different kind of areas in my life. So I feel very curious about this journey. I really trust Natalie, also given, the session we had. I actually did, a couple of exercises before this session tonight, and one of them was about, the personality test. The thing is, I can't really put my finger on the ultimate objective I want to reach, at the end of this journey. But definitely one thing I'd like to work on is my I'm thinking now about the word enslavement sometimes it's not necessarily approval. What I'm trying to reconnect with a few aspects of myself as a child, basically, which I think I have suppressed, for different reasons. Yeah, that's and I want to get back to them and take them, with myself on my journey, so that, I can actually make a few shifts, also in some other areas of my life. And approval, is one of them, which probably sometimes makes me feel stuck. Yeah. But I don't know if I make any sense.
No, you do. I feel like it's fascinating that you're saying this, because it's absolutely what this whole course is about. Is almost, I say this quote of, who are you before the world told you who to be? Every session I say that quote, and that's what it's all about. Like, how much of this, or the way that we're living, is not ours, but it's like beliefs and attitudes and thoughts that were like put upon us. And it's about, what if that wasn't for us, but actually we've taken that on and just kind of like taken on someone else's life story as a result. And it's kind of like removing those layers that aren't ours and actually remembering. So I talk a lot about remembering, because we always knew and know, but we've maybe just forgotten along the way. So that childhood essence bit is where we start. So we spend the first month, first few weeks on childhood essence, and we'll talk a little bit about it today. But often we're born into the world like really unique, aren't we? We have really different skills, attitudes, behaviors, but we then lose them along the way just because of what we learn. And the first step will be reconnecting to that childhood piece about like, what was different about us? What was quirky? What was weird? Like all those things that we kind of maybe took for granted that made us who we were. You know, and it can be hard to remember, but we'll use our family and we're friends, and we'll ask a lot of people through this next few weeks around kind of like, what was I like as a child? Like, you know, because I wore the brightest colors. I literally said to my mum, like, I need to wear every color in the rainbow to school every day. But it's funny, isn't it, how then that was lost along the way, because then I was trying to fit in. So it's just little things like that that you'll uncover and remember about maybe your uniqueness. But yeah, thank you, Max, because I think that sums up kind of where we're going really well, in terms of we're building your authenticity. And the stronger your authenticity is, the more that the external piece won't have such a hold over us, if that makes sense. Cool. Amazing. Donna, over to you.
Hi, so I'm Donna. I'm feeling, I would say, lost as well. I feel a bit stuck in a rut. I feel like I need some direction. I also feel like I need to claim back a bit more self-confidence and self-belief. So I think that's what I'd ultimately like to go with this, is just really find myself and just get that confidence back, really.
Cool. Thank you so much, Donna. And me and Donna used to work together a long time ago, didn't we, Donna?
We did, yeah, about 4 years ago.
Was it? Well, I think it was longer than that, wasn't it? Maybe 5 or 6. Yeah, it's strange.
Maybe it was, yeah.
Amazing to have you here. Awesome. And Rona.
There we go. I was muted, sorry. I'm not quite so familiar with Zoom. Yeah, I'm Rona, and I feel a bit anxious. I was quite drawn to the course after sort of a talk you did, Natalie, for the trust, the NHS trust that I work for, and I think, like somebody else said, it felt a bit sort of serendipitous, you know, that I seem to have a bit of a reoccurring pattern that I can't break that sort of cycle of very specifically around me losing weight and kind of not being very successful at doing that, despite years and years of effort and trying. So I kind of like want to understand what it is that keeps kicking me back into sort of sabotaging my efforts. And like somebody else said, I think I've done quite a lot of work already around some of this stuff, like in a psychological framework, and I do quite a lot of belly button staring, and I think like, you know, I enjoy reflection, and I feel like I'm quite open and happy to explore and to try and understand like what makes me tick, but actually that all becomes quite overwhelming, I think, once you start just going with all of that, and then that just bowls me over. So I think the fact that this is a coaching course is about, actually, I really like the phrase that you use about sort of like honouring your values. So I'm really hoping to break some habits, and or at least reduce the frequency of the habits I'd be happy with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's sometimes it's about understanding like the cost a little bit more, but also kind of understand what's driving that behavior, and that's maybe why we can't quite get to kind of breaking that. But it's knowing, or just asking those deeper questions, isn't it? But I think I like what you said about embodiment, though, in that's why Lizzie's a really nice kind of balance for me, because we can often be feeling through our mind. Like I often think I'm feeling, but actually I'm thinking. And I think we have a real struggle like through having a human experience, to like feel and be in our bodies. Like when someone asks you, I know it's an open question, you know, where do you feel that anxiety in your body? Like that's a really hard question for us to answer. And Sam does a lot of work, don't you, Sam, on embodiment? And I think we'll be leaning on you a bit around that, because actually that's where the intuition and the power is, you know. But if we can't connect to that place, then actually we're losing so much, so much power, I think. Sam, is there anything you want to say on that? I know you do a lot of work in that space.
Yeah, totally. And I think in our society, a lot of what we do is in our mind. We're always logically going by the mind, and through that there can be quite a numbness in the body. And then when someone asks you how do you actually feel, it's really hard to answer the question. And it's through like asking that question and just even taking a few deep breaths and then tuning into your body and just actually becoming aware of sensations in the body or anything like that. But we've never been taught to do that. We've just been taught to, how do you think, like what's going on here? And from that we're very disconnected. And then that's where a lot of diseases and a lot of things can start to happen and manifest in the body, because we're kind of just working from here up. But actually, like, what's your heart telling you? And for a woman, you know, like, what's your womb telling you? You know, like, you're all this as well. So I've, through my own journey, I've done a lot of mindful work, but dived a lot more into embodiment work over the last few years, and I've got so much more from that than I have from just the mind. And from that, even like trauma release stuff, like, you know, even just things that have happened to you throughout your life, and you hold, so if you can imagine like energy, little pockets of energy getting stuck in your body, and they just stay there until you actually come into the body and know where that energy is, or that stuckness, and then actually use breath work or movement or sound to release that. But that's a whole other kind of story. But I've just found so much more like impact in my body by coming into the body. And the mind's really important as well, but if you can have a bit of balance of both, you can have so much more of a transformation. So hopefully that makes sense. But
it does. And I think that's why, Sam, like, we are offer, and the work we do complements each other really nicely, doesn't it, as well? Because I do a lot at mind level, but it's about mind, body, soul. So that's for me the three layers that are like that almost you work through. In terms of the mind, yeah, it's great to have an awareness of the subconscious beliefs and the patterns, but then you almost integrate it in the body. And then there's the soul piece too, you know, and that's, you know, a whole different level. And you might only resonate with one layer or three layers or two, but it's about you having the bits to pick and then knowing which bit is right for the next step in your journey. And that's what this is all about, giving you a whole host of tools. And then you can go and then like deep dive into the ones that you're like, oh, that's so interesting for me. And it'll be different for everyone. So through this course, it's a real mixture. So the value work might resonate with someone, and the embodiment stuff and the life purpose bit might resonate with others. And that's what I say, like, if it doesn't all resonate, don't worry. Because for me, this is like, I like to kind of call it almost like not the beginner's guide, but like a really great kind of like selection box. I open Pandora's box of like everything we could have, and then you guys picking the bits that you are really drawn to, and then like doing a deep dive from there. Because when I started my journey, I didn't have that. And it was almost, I just bought every book in the library, and then just like, you know, it can be hard to know or have that map laid out for you. That's kind of what we're trying to do here. Awesome. Okay, so quick question to you guys, and don't worry if there is anyone that hasn't managed to get started on the pre-work yet, but how many of you have been able to work through any of that yet to date?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll start on the Jay Shetty stuff in terms of the strengths and weaknesses. How did that land? Because this bit frames the whole course really in terms of what this authenticity piece is all about. So what we're trying to do here is build your authenticity. The almost strength is the intuition in terms of the part of you that is the natural kind of like agile, almost like, you know, the child essence piece, rather than work on our weaknesses, which is like a society belief, right? Like, how many of you have been told growing up, like, you know, work on the things that you're bad at? So I just wondered, question to everyone, like, how did that land? Did that resonate? And if not, why not? Let's just, throw some ideas around.
Yeah. I mean, it did resonate to me, definitely. And it was actually interesting to do the exercise, while listening to the podcast. At some point, I don't know if you remember, at some point he mentioned um, Clifton Strengths Finder, which I've done also. I do that also, as part of my coaching. But it's more within my frame of mind. So when he was talking about weaknesses and strengths and trying also to make a list of them, for me, although, after I've done the exercise, with the Clifton Strengths Finder, okay, I know what my main strengths, my 5 main strengths are, but I was much during the exercise trying to listing, them. I was much more focused on working on my weaknesses. So when I talk to people in my coaching, or when I talk to people in general, I actually try to focus on their strengths. But when I think about myself,
That's so interesting.
it's much more on what I want to improve.
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah, so almost like mirroring that back to you. There's a lesson there.
Basically, yes, yeah.
To kind of, yeah, that's so fascinating, isn't it? And that was probably something you weren't really aware that you were doing as well.
Not really, but I was very, for me, it was very easy, like coming up with a long list of weaknesses. So yeah, so that was interesting.
Yeah, and I will talk a lot about Jay Shetty. Like, I'm in love with Jay Shetty so much, and his wife, actually, she's amazing too. But yeah, that whole concept and like being on purpose, he talks a lot about being on purpose, and it's about being in alignment. So when we're on purpose, we're like in alignment with our values, we're in alignment with kind of what feels good. Whereas if we're not on purpose, we're kind of living up someone else's life path. We're kind of like, not being the author of our story. And for me, it's about the compass of like, we've got all the tools to keep ourselves on the straight and narrow, because actually we always lose ourselves through life. Like, that's a given. But as long as we've got the map to the way home, then actually that's okay, right? Because we're happy to get lost, because then we can just jump back on again. We've just got to reconnect and realize, actually, I'm lost. Okay, I've got the tools to get back. And that's what this is all about. Not being scared to fall off, because we will, because other people, we're living in an external world, but actually it's reconnecting every time, reconnecting back. Any other thoughts on that strength weaknesses bit? Anyone else?
I thought the bit about not judging a fish for trying to climb a tree was a very good analogy, because I think when you think about that, it does sound ridiculous that you would tell a fish it was rubbish because it couldn't climb a tree. So I think that helped me think about trying to focus on the strengths part. I didn't really list. I was trying to multitask, and that was not what I should have been doing. So I was listening while cooking dinner and doing other things. But
that's fine. And again, you'll come back to this, because this concept is related to everything we do, and this is why we start with it, because actually everything is framed in, does that come easily to you? And I talk about procrastination a lot, like, and I know it's really easy for me to say, should you ever start? But if it's so hard, like, is it yours, right? Like, it's like the strength bit around looking at what comes easily. We're always driving what's hard, and what feels unattainable. And that's the shift we need to make in our mind throughout the whole program, is like shifting to actually like what feels easily, what comes naturally, what feels good. Because once we can make that shift in our mind, it's easier to follow the path that's ours to follow. And that's why we kind of start with that bit, really. Lauren, any thoughts from you? Strengths, weaknesses. I know we've spoken about this before.
Yeah, Jay, I'm already halfway through his book. He's fabulous.
He is, isn't he? I love him.
It was another synchronicity moment that Molly gave me the book right before I started speaking to Natalie, and I was already halfway through. So I had already done the personality test, and everything just was like, okay, yeah, have you met me? Because this is like exactly me.
Yeah.
Right down to the fact that so I was like majority of a guide in the personality test, right down to the point where I know I have a lot of knowledge about the things I'm passionate about. So I tend to not really use my active listening when I'm talking to people about it. And I know I should, but I'm already calculating the response in my mind before I've actually stopped and listened to what people are saying. So I already knew that was something that I'm already working on. But with Jay Shetty's, when he was talking about the schooling system and how people are ranked against different students. I have a twin brother who's very, very intelligent. He was like at the highest grades in our year level and is doing med. And I was like an art student. So it was like, we always had this competitive angle, even though we had nothing in common. But there was that sort of putting us together because we were in the same year level, we had the same teachers, we had like, so there was always this, even from a child. And when he said that, that resonated so deeply that like, I was never good at maths, I was never good at spelling, but it just came so naturally to him. So that was,
so interesting, isn't it, that like that supported his traits, the traits that he
but
adopted.
It didn't support mine.
Exactly, but it kind of almost put yours in a box and didn't allow that creativity to kind of to flow. So it just shows like certain personality styles are kind of supported in our kind of culture, but others aren't so much. So it's really interesting. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for referencing the quiz, because that's again a really good starting point, because actually it's just a nice way to look at the Dharma piece. So in terms of his work, Dharma means kind of, it's another word for life purpose. But a lot of our work is about helping you become clear on your life purpose. But you can't know your life purpose if you don't know who you are. I always say, like, we're all so fascinated by the why, aren't we? But we don't know the who. So of course we're not going to know the why, because the who is so muddy and it's kind of been layered upon layered of conditioning. So actually it's about stripping back, and then actually the why just flows, because we're like, well, that makes sense, because that's how I am in the world, and then that's then how I will have a ripple effect to those around you, and and vice versa. It will just flow. But it's nice that again you've got that reference point. In terms of the Dharma quiz, quick round the room, like what were the kind of percentages that came out for people?
So it was leader, 30% leader.
Yeah.
But all the others were 20 and 25 and 25. So I wasn't quite sure what to make of that.
And did you resonate with the leader piece? Because you've told me a little bit about your job, and that makes sense because you're also in that capacity, aren't you?
I don't know if I missed something somewhere, but there was a sheet to describe how I do something through those 4 different areas or something. Was there a worksheet that you had?
I can send that through if it wasn't clear. Don't worry, that's fine. I can pop that through to you.
I wasn't quite sure how, because I got the description about the leader and I put my email in, but I haven't actually had an email back with the more detailed breakdown of the assessment.
It should just literally put your email in, and it basically just opens up another page, but it stays on that page rather than emails you, I think, if that makes sense.
Oh, right. Okay.
I might have to go back. It'll disappear.
Oh, okay. I might have to go back and have a look at that. Yeah.
Again, so like I say with a lot of this stuff, if it doesn't resonate at the time, don't worry, because it might. A lot of people from the last course, Lizzie, didn't they? Like Dharma type became really relevant in module 3, so we revisited it. But it's just a really nice foundation reference point for you just to look at a few of these and have a benchmark. But if it doesn't make sense right now, don't worry, because it's about getting you going, giving you some. It's about looking into a mirror almost at this stage.
Okay.
Might be nice actually for everyone to keep a hold of the percentages and note it down somewhere. So at the end of the course, you can retake the Dharma personality test and see if that's changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the values all will change, and they're meant to. I say almost it's not meant to stay the same. So just kind of like, that's a big part of this course, in that we aren't trying to keep you stuck or bound or kind of labeled with any of this work. Like, if we're doing something right if it changes every single day. because actually we're fluid and we're evolving, you know, and that's about a big kind of almost society piece around, if we change, it's like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. You know, you said you're meant to be like this because I thought that that's how you were actually, but when men are evolve, it's meant to be fluid. Cool. Sam, thoughts? What were you? Guide?
I was guide, yeah, 40% guide.
Yeah. What about, I guess you're a guide as well, because you're both coach, you're in the coach space.
35% guide.
Yeah. So I really resonated with it. I think I did the same as Rona though. I was expecting the email to see a more in-depth thing, but even just the guide thing, I was like, yeah, that totally resonated. So
yeah, and again, go off and do some more research if it resonates for you to go in and dive more, because again, we kind of give you the foundation level of loads of bits, and it's about picking from it. So there's a little bit about human design in the course as well, which you might want to go on loads on, but some people don't resonate with it because it's quite an in-depth, it's astrology related. So some people either resonate with that or they don't. So again, it's about giving you a whole host of things, and you take which bits feel like, that they spark something, you know, and that's about me testing your intuition, right? Because actually you're not all meant to like find the same bits interesting. Through the last course, people were saying, is that right or is that wrong? I'm never going to say it's right or wrong, because this is what it's all about, like deepening your own intuition with what feels like it's for you. Awesome. Lizzie, anything to add on that stuff in terms of the pre-work, or anything anyone else wants to add on, any kind of realizations or interesting thoughts that came up through doing that work?
I did the 2 guided imageries on, I think I need to spend a little bit of time on the Thinkific site.
Yeah,
because I wasn't quite sure. It kept saying like complete and do the continue or something. I wasn't quite sure how far I was meant to be going.
Yeah. So only up until just the pre-work modules. So like you should have gone up to childhood essence basically. So the next module that you'll do is childhood essence, but we'll always do it chunk by chunk. So I'll always say, I'll always stop you at the end of a module. So you'll never kind of be unclear, if that makes sense. But you haven't almost
so I going until it stops.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So I did the 2 visualizations, and I got 2 very, very different future me's, which I thought was kind of interesting, because I am a real all or nothing. People have often, like when I've done psychometric tests and things and stuff before, people have often said, or either you're trying to fake the results, or you are just so different in different situations that like the test couldn't put you one way, which sort of fits, I guess, with the being 30, 20, 25, 25 on the Dharma thing. It's like
masks. Maybe it's 2 masks that you wear.
Or more, quite possibly.
Well, we all have many, right? But actually there's a consistent one that's actually the real one that maybe is.
And there is a thing that I've sort of repeated pattern that I know about myself, where I'm set the bar really, really high and the expectations are like that, or it's just like really rock bottom. And I've been doing a lot of work trying to find the middle ground in things. So with those 2 visualizations, it was really interesting to get 2 extremes of my future self. And actually my future self is probably somewhere in between those 2 characters.
Interesting. And again, with some of this, the visualization might not resonate. Some people do find it quite hard to connect to visualization. It takes a lot of practice. And we will actually, in every session, we will start normally every session with visualization or a meditation with Lizzie, because that's something that we are almost training or developing a skill in through the course, because it isn't something that just overnight, like Sam, you know, that actually we just get all the visuals and we see what we're meant to see, because actually our mind resists that so much initially because of the fact that it's not normal. And actually our mind's like, what? I'm quiet. So you're thinking about everything else, you know, and it's then on override. So there's an element of like saying, if that didn't come up, or you felt uncomfortable, that's okay. Because by the end, you'll find that actually becomes a little bit more comfortable. That can be, I think it's important to say, meditation and visualization initially can be really, really uncomfortable for people, because our mind just is not used to being still or being encouraged to be still as well. Anything else on the visualization side? Anything that came up in terms of how it felt different in 3 months' time?
I think mine was quite blurred. I mean, I was trying to visualize my future self, and I've done a few visualization exercises, but I think I still need some practice around it. So it was quite confusing and blurred. But interestingly enough, and actually I kind of smiled at the very end. I think at some point, I think you're saying, think about the place you're at, and try to be as specific, as you can. And I was in the countryside, and I was, in a cottage, and I'm like, ooh, I've always been into big cities,
Wow.
and it was very detailed. So the location was detailed, and I was part of a community, but it was a small community, and it was a small town.
Yeah, which is really different from when you are now, like you're in the center of London, like,
Basically, yes.
And I think that again, it's kind of understanding that there's a big shift there. And again, the more you do it, the more you'll kind of maybe every time find out that little bit more about what that message is, or what that's telling you.
Yeah, that was surprising. Yeah.
Cool, amazing. And any other thoughts before we move on? We're just going to basically introduce the first module, which is childhood essence, now for the remainder of the session. But any other final thoughts on the pre-work? Anything that you guys didn't understand or didn't resonate as well with? Because I'll be checking in with you between now and next Monday, just to have kind of just a 15-minute conversation, or just, even if you guys don't have time, just a quick Slack chat, just to kind of make sure you feel set up in the right way, because this is what it's all about, giving you loads of tools to just have a little bit of a mirror, to like feel ready to start and have that clarity going into it. So yeah, that's where we wanted to spend a little bit of time here, really. But any other thoughts on anything that was interesting or didn't make sense? No. Okay, cool, amazing. So that being said, we are into the first module, which is obviously, as I've framed, childhood essence. So when I say childhood essence, what does it make you guys think or feel?
Well, I think it's a mix of emotions. And interestingly enough, I'm back to Italy next week for a few days. So it brings up different kind of emotions, and some of them are also quite, dark. So.
And that won't be a coincidence that you're there next week when you're doing this.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So what I think we often get a little bit of that. Our mind is often grappling with kind of the negative and the positive in terms of some stuff that maybe went on that we kind of pushed down. We don't necessarily want to revisit. So I just always make the differentiation here in terms of like, we're staying in the real high vibrational, like purity of the stuff that really was happy and almost positive in terms of we're gleaning information at this point. Anything that maybe is on the kind of almost like the harder end process, we're not, this isn't the place for it on this course. I think definitely make a note of it, and we can always signpost you, but we're staying very in the kind of almost the real positive side of actually trying to look at it from that perspective of actually fun, like childhood essence, like uniqueness, and really trying to uncover like, what was it that made me, like to, have a classroom full of 15 people, like how would I have known that it was Max sitting there? Was it the fact that he had the brightest shirt on? Was it the way he laughed and he had the infectious laugh? Was it the knowledge, Was it about the fact that you always had a book in your hand, It's about really trying to understand some of that authenticity. And actually, if you guys find it hard to remember, use your family and friends here. Use people that you were around, because it can be quite hard to remember, and it can be a really fun activity. So what we're going to be doing this week is basically finding a few childhood pictures as well, between the ages of 0 and 7, because that's often where we are. Yeah, we're almost a sponge between those ages, and we're becoming we're finding our place in the world. But often through looking at a picture, and I will share ours, Lizzie, obviously, in Slack throughout the week as well. But you sometimes are connected back with a memory or a feeling or something. So it's quite a good way to access like an emotion or something that was present at that time, because our mind can get involved here and overanalyze. So that's why we kind of use the picture to access. By me just saying about a picture, is there anyone that has any memories or pictures that comes to mind? Because sometimes through just saying that, we are reconnected with a feeling or an emotion.
I had an immediate picture that came to mind when I started thinking about that, and there's a picture of me about age 6, I reckon, 5 or 6. My parents were really older than the average bear, and so I had this real like 1970, well, it wasn't far out the 70s, but like it really dated like little smock on,
yeah,
and bunches with red ribbons, and I'm very much posing for the camera with like my head on a table, like leaning.
I'm just feeling the sass coming through the screen there. It's like sassy.
It's like matching shoes, and even though it was really dated, it was pretty stylish. And yes, I get the feeling of quite a gregarious, happy, not what's the other word that's often used? Not pretentious, just real naive,
yeah,
free spirited sort of.
And no care about other people's beliefs or thoughts or feelings, or like a real freedom in, like, I feel I sense a lot of freedom with that. Interesting. Yeah. Anyone else? Any other kind of images that come to mind there?
We, my family, we've been looking through loads of photos recently, and there was one in particular. I think I'm about 3, and I was like, I loved my outfit. Even then, I was like, oh, because I'm really into like what I wear and stuff, or just being a bit different. So then, even seeing at that age, I've got this like little multicolored outfit on. And I was like, oh, I must have like been quite, or my mum must have dressed me like quite differently from a very young age. So, it was quite nice to see that, Yeah,
absolutely. It can just help us remember, certain qualities. And like I said, with me, I always talk about the fact that I literally only wore the brightest colors, and then I went through a stage in my life in my teenage years where, my brother and sister were very quiet, and my family are all introverts. So I kind of learned to be very shy and quiet. And it was like, well, no, why are you so loud? Stop. Like, you're embarrassing us. Because I was literally like so over the top. And actually, it's so interesting how I lost that along the way. And then now it's been about reconnecting to those, that brightness. And I love yellow and orange. When I wear those colors now, I feel more like me. And it's just fascinating how we can just place those beliefs sometimes and then just realize how they've started to shape us, and not any blame associated, but just be aware. It's all about awareness. It's all about awareness, this process. The more awareness we have, the more we can then consciously go into our life and choose, rather than adopting stuff that maybe is subconscious and driving our behavior and we're not even aware of it. What about you, Lauren?
I mean, a lot of the pictures that come to mind quickly are with my brother, because we were always together. He's my best friend, so like just us running amok, getting into trouble. The picture that flashed up was me and Justin. We'd broken into our parents' shower. I forget, we must have only been like 2, so tiny, but that was the first image that flashed up, and they're like the surprise on our faces that we'd been busted in the shower where we weren't meant to be. It's just popped straight into my head. So yeah.
And I can't wait, and what we'll do next week when you go away and do some of this work, so you'll do the module and then we'll come back and obviously debrief that module. But we will actually bring our photos to the session, but also please use Slack and share them as we go, because that's where the integration bit happens outside. So if you have a moment where you're looking through a photo and you're like, oh my God, share it with the group. That's what we're here for. And that's the beauty in this space, in that like we're constantly integrating, and it isn't about what happens at these sessions, it's about the learning that happens outside and how we then bring it back and process it together. So please do throughout the week, like go and share those and let us know how it's going, because there'll be so many emotions, the fact that we've just become aware of this now, and you'll kind of just notice things and see things differently. And that's what this first stage of the program is all about. Donna, any thoughts from you? And if not, don't worry, but I wondered if any kind of images popped into your mind.
I think I have a lot of photographs of me as a child, bizarrely. And I don't know why. I think my siblings all got them because I'm the youngest child. But the only photos that I can really recall are of me eating.
Ooh.
Every photo that springs to mind, I'm eating. Which is really strange.
And you still love food? Are you still like a connoisseur of food, would you say?
No, I'm not a connoisseur. I do definitely like my food though. But I don't know, it's a bit strange, isn't it, that everyone I can think of I'm eating.
There might be something in that, honestly. I spoke to someone recently, and that was actually Rona. I think it was on the back of our stuff we did through Oxford Health. I was speaking to a lady who works in the NHS, and she's just become worked in the maternity ward and just become a midwife again. And we were talking about childhood essence just briefly, and she said, you know what, I've just realised, when I was a child, I went and knocked on all my neighbours' doors and asked if I could take their babies for a walk. Like as a child, she did that. And then she's now like, I think 47, 48, and she's now a midwife. And she's like, I always had that innate ability. And I was like, wow, that's so powerful, isn't it? The fact that she always had that draw and attention, but we didn't harness that, you know. And I think there might be something there. There might not be, Donna, but you know, who knows? We had friends.
I'm yet to find my calling then.
Wow,
with food.
Maybe. Who knows? I'm not saying it might be that easy, but there is just untapping some of that. It is just, there's a lot of information there. And we had someone, didn't we, Lizzie, in our last course, that absolutely loved books, you know, and for her, like the knowledge piece is a really big part of what she's going on to do now in terms of her career change, in connecting with that real love for knowledge and thirst for knowledge as well. So it's just it's not always kind of the be all and end all, but it's just really important to spend a bit of time there and kind of ask some of those questions, really. Lizzie, do you want to say anything? So I know you did this for the first time, didn't you, with the last course?
Yeah, so image for me that comes to mind, which will probably be in one of the images that I share, is I think I was about 6, and I'm like running down a hill. My dad took a lot of pictures of us when we were kids, so he captured the moment, and I'm just running down this hill with a tiny little pigtail, big smile on my face. I'm wearing these sort of frog, you know, those frog wellies that we used to have. And I've just got this this big smile, full of excitement. And my mum always said I was full of beans. I was quite playful. So yeah, the thing I actually want to come to, that everyone to think about, is this idea of like playfulness that we had as children. And for me anyway, most certainly it's something that I've been trying to bring about much more in my life. So how can we connect to this idea of playfulness, right? That's really, really interesting. And actually, yeah, and I think as well, like you know, I'm very interested in yoga and the philosophy around yoga, but also I think it's mentioned in the Bible, and it talks about how I've got a quote here. If I'm not religious or anything, but I just thought it was interesting what Jesus had to say. And he said, "Let the children come to me and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." So he was basically saying, whether it's heaven, whether it's enlightenment, we can find through this idea of playfulness. So in a way, our true essence is being here and now in a playful moment, essentially. So yeah, that'll be something nice for us all to explore.
Yeah. And I saw a quote the other day, and it was like, artists are just children that don't put down their crayons. I really loved that.
Yeah, I love that too.
Wow, isn't it? That's beautiful. You know, creativity. So many people don't talk about creativity. I'm not creative. We are all creative. Okay, we are all creative. We've just lost the acts. We've disconnected from it. But yeah, it comes back to that connection too, doesn't it, Lauren, what you were saying about the fact that actually, you know, you were driven away from that just because of, you know, the way that you know, the schooling system and things, right? Awesome. Okay, Lizzie, do you want to just introduce the journal prompts that we're going to leave people with for the next week? Because if you guys could make a note of these, they will be the start of then the work that you do between now and next session. And these are prompts we almost want you to kind of work through and share with us on Slack. So don't, if something's coming up or you're getting stuck on it, please work through these with us, because it's about, yeah, taking the learning and moving forward. Especially with journal prompts, sometimes it can be quite hard to kind of like feel that anything comes up. So we might even do the first few, Lizzie, now. It might be that we kind of do the first two now just to get us going.
Okay. So the first one is, can you describe one of your earliest memories? So yeah, really think about the feelings that come to mind with that question.
Yeah.
Are we going to, Natalie, are we going to share our thoughts here? Or yeah.
No, go through them and might discuss one or two depending on time. But yeah, go through them all.
Okay. Yeah.
We might just discuss the first few.
Next one, how were you as a child? So yeah, behaviors and your personality.
And the picture might help this. You might struggle with this until you see the picture, and then you might want to ask the questions alongside the picture, because it might just free up some of the memories for you as well.
And the next one is, how did these qualities show themselves? Natalie, I've got about 5. Did we need more than that?
No, I think 5's enough, because we've got a lot of stuff like visualizations and stuff in the work. I just wanted to get things going.
Yeah, okay. What things did you like as a child? So activities, games, toys.
Lizzie, can you just repeat that? My sound just broke up there.
Oh, what things did you like as a child?
Thank you.
So activities, games, toys, playing with your siblings as an example as well.
And is this specifically sort of up to and around the age of 7, or?
Yeah, I think it's good to kind of think about that window, just because that's when we're learning so much about that we're a sponge. Like between 0 and 7, we literally are just like a sponge. But what we had an alumni call just before, and actually there was a few people on that said it'd be useful to like reconnect with the teenage years separately, because actually there's these different stages whereby we take on some different beliefs. But yeah, for this purpose, stay between 0 and 7, but we might find that we kind of explore that kind of 7 to 14 piece separately, because I think there's a different belief system, or there's different things that can be challenges. For example, like me with bullying, I experienced bullying during those years that then had an effect. But yeah, at the moment, let's stay in that 0 to 7 age.
What are your happiest childhood memories? So can you think of one event? And again, think about the feelings around that event and that memory.
So there's quite a lot of stuff in the work that we're going to do this week that is a real mix. So there's some visualization, there's some audios, there's a letter that you can write to your childhood self. There's some journal prompts. So the whole point with all of this is that we give you a toolkit or a toolbox. So if some of it doesn't resonate or you're stuck, please don't stay there and force yourself to do it. We give you a mix because some of it will resonate, some of it might not. So this is what I'd say, all of it, just skip over the bits that maybe don't feel like they're for you, but there's a real mix of stuff that helps you dive into this. And this is my favorite part of the whole course. I don't know if it's yours, Lizzie. It's just like, there's just, yeah, I don't know, there's just so much juicy information here.
Yeah, I'm doing, sorry, I was going to say I'm doing a lot of work on this area at the moment outside of the course. So if anyone is actually interested in exploring this a little bit more, I've got a really interesting book that I'm reading, which I'd be happy to share with some of you.
Yeah, send a screenshot in Slack. That'd be really useful, because I want to read that too. Anyone, just from those questions before we log off, because I'm aware of time and I do want to stick to an hour where possible, anyone just want to share anything before we go off our separate ways in terms of anything that came up from those questions? And it might be that you need to sit with them a bit more, but anything that you guys want to share at this
point? Something that come up for me, which has come up quite a few times tonight, was dancing. And I danced as a child, and I still love to dance, but sometimes it's like I don't fully allow myself to dance as much as I'd like to. And like when you talk about the playfulness, I'm so aware of that. Sometimes I'm like, as an adult, I can be a bit like, give myself set time for playfulness. But actually it's in the doing of dancing and stuff that brings out more creativity in me, even if it's just doing silly dancing about the house. So quite a few times tonight, dancing is like, it's like a little reminder to do more of that, because when I'm in that state, it's more of a flow state, and then I feel I get more creative and stuff. So
wow.
So that's come up a few times. Yeah,
amazing. Thank you for sharing. And I think that's important, because it's sometimes an activity, a colour, you know, it might be that we get a really strong image of a toy that we're attached to, you know, so it can be so different, you know, for everyone. Anyone else?
I had flashes of apples. Apparently when I was a kid, I used to eat like the entire apple, like just down to like this much left of the core. I used to chew it all, so there was only this tiny, and I just lived on them. Wow. And I just have a fond memory of eating apples. I'm not sure where that came from, but
yeah, it's so fascinating.
I still love an apple, but I can't say I chew on it till it's just a core anymore. But
wow, that's so interesting. And definitely do lean on your like caregivers, your siblings here around kind of trying to connect back, because it can be quite hard if we can't remember. And the more you force it, the more it can be quite stuck, like, or you can get into a bit of a stuckness. But if you are struggling to access those, yeah, either ask family, friends, or come back to it at a later stage. Because actually we had a lot of people on our last course that came back to child adolescence at month 2 and 3 and had so many breakthroughs around memories, but actually it just came at a different stage of the course. So again, just trust the fact that if it's feeling hard, just kind of like take a step back, and we can always come back to it. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna love and leave you all, just because I'm aware that I don't want to take up too much of your evenings. We're going to meet at 6:30 if that's all right next week. We're going to do 3 weeks of 6:30, and then the odd just once a month it'll be 7 till 8. But I'm just aware that time, from speaking to most of you, is just slightly earlier finish, because it can be quite late on Monday night if to finish at 8 o'clock. So if that's all right with everyone, that's what we're aimed for. And the biggest thing to say is we're here on hand, me and Lizzie. So please don't be a stranger. If there's anyone that's not connected to Slack yet, please drop me a message and make sure that you're all linked into the messages, and maybe just kind of make a point just to pop your photo in, or just say hello to everyone, just so we've got that comms piece sorted, because it's a really important part of the program. Meditation is tonight at 8:30 with Lizzie. You might not be up for it because it's a lot all in one evening, but we do have the meditation and yoga that can hold you throughout this course. So if you want to get involved with that, obviously let us know. And yeah, just welcome. I hope that wasn't too overwhelming, but it's a lot to get you going. But yeah, just thank you for being here, and really looking forward to working with you all.
Nice to meet you all.
Lovely to meet you all.
Thanks everyone. Nice to meet you.
See you guys.
See you Monday. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Oh. How did, oh, let me just quickly stop recording.